Look at this. I want to start making some histology videos, microscopes, cells, slides, that sort of thing, because that'll be really useful for students. It's really important in anatomy to understand the different cell types and how they're arranged, because it explains our adult anatomy. And I want to make it easy, right? So I'm thinking about clearing out this desk and putting the microscope there, using that display, and more already having fun things like trying to get displays to work by converting to, and oh, look at, I can't store any more models in there. There's a bit of space under there to check stuff. Could I put stuff up there maybe? Oh, there's a lot of, where can I put all of this? How am I going to arrange that? Maybe I could put the camera on a thing over there, and yeah, maybe I could put a camera on a thing over there, got some lights. And do you ever feel like you use up your decision-making energy, your decision-making ability? It's like when I've been working all week and I get to the weekend, I struggle even to decide where to go climbing. When I get home in the evening, what would you like for tea? All those little questions I seem to have run out of energy for, and And yeah, as a teacher, you make a lot of decisions. Everybody makes a lot of decisions, way more decisions than you think you make. But as a teacher, I'm deciding what to include in the session, what to leave out of the session. During the session, I'm gauging my audience and what are they getting, what are they not getting, what should I go over again, how should I explain this, should I explain it differently, should I signpost to this, that and the other. Just constantly making decisions on top of all that other thinking and remembering and speaking and organising and structuring. It's really tiring using your brain. This seems to be a well-described phenomenon of decision-making fatigue. There are studies that talk about it. Maybe it's related to the neurotransmitter production and recycling and things like that. Maybe it's something biochemical, maybe it's something else. But we have a capacity for making a certain number of decisions, little decisions, medium-sized decisions, big decisions. And as the day goes on, as we get this decision-making fatigue, not only later in the day might it be harder to make a decision, but our ability to make good decisions maybe drops off as well, and maybe our biases start to take over, and maybe our decision-making ability, our capacity isn't as good as it was earlier in the day. Some famous people are well known for managing this. Like they wear the same clothes every day because they don't have to think about what clothes to wear every day. Given how many decisions you have to make in healthcare and medicine and how important those decisions might be, this is an important concept for healthcare professionals. And also, given teaching and learning and what students have to do with their brains and the number of decisions they have to make through the day, I think it's important for students to consider as well. And there are recommendations like you make your important decisions earlier in the day when you have maximum decision-making capacity, and you maybe avoid making big decisions later in the day. I don't know if that's always possible. But I think there are other sensible recommendations like, sleep helps with recovery and rest. So taking breaks between activities is important, and getting exercise and going outside, going for a walk helps with this. It helps the brain recover, right? You relax your brain, you start to recover from some of this decision-making capacity and other things as well. And maybe you can use somebody else you trust, somebody else that knows you to help you make decisions. Maybe offload the work a little bit, make it a shared thing, and then you're more likely to make a better decision. Hey, that's good practice anyway, right? And then, of course, there are two other things that happen with making decisions. We're confronted with a bunch of decisions, and there's usually more than one right answer, but you struggle to make a decision. But it doesn't really matter. Any of those decisions that you make, any of those choices that you make, as in what you're going to have for lunch, what you're going to have for tea, any of those decisions are probably fine. You don't really need to spend that much time on it. Same thing happens with anatomy exam questions. Sometimes there's more than one right answer, and students get hooked up on this. Is it this right answer or is it this right answer? They're both right answers. You can give me either of them. And it's also important then that when we are presenting options to somebody that is making a decision, if you give too many choices, too many options, that person might be overwhelmed and it become impossible to make a decision. I think we've all experienced that, right? You go to a shop to buy a thing, turns out there's loads of different types of the thing, and I don't know which one I want, and you just give up and you don't make a decision at all. Sometimes any decision is better than no decision, but you have to be a little bit careful there. Support is helpful. So there are quite a lot of studies supporting this idea, but then there are other studies saying that, well, maybe what those studies are measuring. So studies are measuring things like healthcare providers, the quality of their decisions later in the day are different to the decisions they made earlier in the day. Sometimes maybe they're not as good. But maybe actually that's as a result of something else. That's a true measurement, but actually something else is the cause of that. Like later in the day, you're running out of time, or your appointments have overrun. Your time, the time for each person, each decision is getting shorter, so you change the decisions you make. So you might actually be measuring something else. This might not be a real thing, this decision-making fatigue. Maybe it's just a bias of publication, right? In that you're more likely to get your study published if you show a positive result than if you show a negative result. Maybe there are plenty of studies out there that showed that this isn't a thing, but they never got published. Maybe for those of us that are aware of decision-making fatigue, it becomes a real thing because we expect it to be a real thing, so we expect it to be harder to make decisions later in the day, and then that's what we feel. So maybe it's, it's that self-fulfilling prophecy type thing. But that said, we know that good sleep, rest, taking breaks, doing something different, doodling, your mind relaxes, sketching, drawing, going for a walk, something like that. It does help in making decisions clear in the brain. It just helps having a bit of a rest, right? I think that's a given. We know that one. Fatigue is a real thing. We know about that. Fatigue is something to watch out for. Balance, right? And like I say, I don't think knowing about decision fatigue helps very much. It's my microscope. Any decision I make, anywhere I chuck that stuff and clear off that desk too, doesn't really matter, does it? As long as I clear it all off, get started, start moving things in, it'll work itself out. So look forward to some histology. Give me a few weeks. Slide goes there, objectives, light goes up there. So there's the eyepieces for me. And then this is the C-mount for the camera. So I've bought a new adapter already. See that? Good decision making. So I can put one of my cameras on here and record some 4K video. See, if I set it up in my office, I don't have to wait for the lab to be quiet and clear, and I don't have to do so much setup every time, which makes it easier to do. But then I have to decide, do I use a green screen and put myself in that way, or do I just cut out a circle? What camera do I use for this? What camera do I use for that? How do I light it? What slides do I use? How do I explain this? What tissues do I talk about? How do I talk about the shapes and the cutting and all? See, there's a lot of thinking to be done, a lot of decisions, but I've learnt that as long as it doesn't really matter, as long as you make some decisions and get it done, getting it done is better than not doing it at all. And then with practice, you can get it to a high standard. I've been talking about doing a histology series for ages because I've been talking about doing a nice introductory histology series for the students at Swansea University, but one of my colleagues has just retired and he has donated me all of his slides. So that was a bit of a prompt, right? You guys all need a bit more histology in your lives, I reckon. Do you think these slides have been around for a while? Remember, this is my research background. I spent a big part of my life working with cells. My first teaching job actually was teaching histology to medical students and dental students. So I reckon I can remember a bit. Something's going on. If there's a ball or a fair or something. Anyway, the other thing I'm doing today is I'm trying to record a little podcast about the amygdala. So we do a regular weekly podcast for the Dissectable Me series. And I just want to talk about the amygdala. They're always 5-minute podcasts. I'm trying to decide if I've got enough stuff, if I'm including the stuff that's important, if I'm keeping it simple. So one of the ways of dealing with that is I go for a walk, usually a quiet walk. And my brain clears, all that stuff that was in my face is gone, and I can just walk and think, and I find it easier to make decisions, and I find it easier to come up with new creative solutions. Sometimes I just need to eat something. What do you think? So I need to add my camera for the microscope in there. Got to link it up to that cable there, and then I can see on that monitor, make sure I've got my focus and stuff. That there is a big fancy mount. That'll take my big camera, so that'll be looking at me when I'm sat at the microscope. And I got a couple of lights. Yeah, they're not the most presentable chair. I think I was sat on that chair for literally 20 years. I've worn it out. All right, camera's on the stand. Not super happy with the lights, but it's what I've got available. And we're mostly going to be looking down the microscope, right? Background's a bit ugly as well. Maybe I can move things around and tweak that, or maybe we should stay zoomed in and shallow depth of field. Like I say, mostly we're going to be looking at the cells, but there we go. Didn't think too hard, just got some decisions done and cleaned it up. All right. I'll work out what to do next now.